Alright, Sony's XM6 is finally here. Let's get through a couple of facts on the headphones and our initial impressions. And we will compare it a little bit to the XM5 because that's the one it's trying to dethrone.
Namaste with DHRME, dedicated headphone reviews mixed with entertainment. We're also going to walk through the app, the new features, the hardware, so feel free to use the chapters down below to skip to sections.
A couple of things on build and design. So the headphones are going to weigh in at 254 grams and then foldability. The rumors were right, guys. The headphones can fold, so they're basically going back to the pre-XM5 era of foldable headphones. They've also widened the headband. The ear pads are made out of synthetic leather. The ear cups are also more fingerprint resistant, which is funny because the black version that we've had was full of Rohan's oil stains, Mr. Oily Boy. And because the headphones are foldable, they go into a case.
WH-1000 XM2, WH-1000 XM5, WH-1000 XM6. It's getting smaller. That's what she said.
And that case not only has a compartment for the cables and obviously for the headphones, but the way you open and close it is with a magnetic closure. So it's kind of cool. We haven't actually seen this on headphones before. So I think this might make it very easy to close and open up the case to get to your headphones. You're getting them in 3 colors, black, silver, and midnight blue. The charging, there is fast charging here. 3 minutes will get you 3 hours. And the way the headphones fold around your neck has changed. They're not, unfortunately, full 180. They do fold in such a way that the ear cups are flat against your chest instead of the ear cups exposed up top. So as for the controls, we've seen a couple of differences here as well. There's this big circular power button now, just so that you can differentiate the buttons from a tactile point of view. And for the rest, the buttons are the same and the touch gestures are the same as the XM5 as well. So Rohan, how was this?
All right, first impressions. I've just paired this and this is the first time I'm putting the Sony WH-1000 XM6 on my head. First impressions, many of you guys are going to be super happy about this. It's a much stronger clamp. I love the clamp on the Sony WH-1000 XM5, which was much lighter than this. But this is a strong clamp, guys. So you clampy boys are in for a good time. All right, I was so excited I didn't turn on the mic for the first one. Second thing I can tell you in terms of impressions is that the buttons, they feel much less firm than on the Sony WH-1000 XM5. I didn't have the problem with the Sony WH-1000 XM5 buttons, but on the XM6, the NC ambient button at least feels a little less firm and moves around a bit more in the slot. I hope that's not a problem in the long term. Okay, I put the mic here. So the power button, which is a dimple here on this side, this is where the power button rests, is actually pretty easy to hit. I hit it right now and it's telling me the battery percentage. So the buttons, there's just 2 buttons now, and of course there is the good old touch control. I think compared to the XM5, where I thought they nailed the latency on the touch control, it's doing pretty much the same. So I think if you were okay with the XM5 touch controls, you would be. They're not good old buttons like the Bowers & Wilkins PX7S3 or some others, but all right, one of the questions a lot of people were asking is the comfort. So let's talk about 3 aspects of the comfort. In terms of weight, that's the first aspect. I think both are pretty similar. On the head, they feel similar weight-wise, but they have changed something on the headband. The XM6 headband on the top is a bit thicker than the XM5 headband. And on the XM5, at the starting position, if you put it on the minimum size, it was a bit more rounded. If you see here, you can see that the starting position on the XM6 is a bit wider. So this might actually be better for bigger heads. And of course, you can extend the telescopic arms. So both the telescopic arms are ratchetless, which means there is no noise. It's a smooth adjustment. But I know what you guys are thinking. The biggest question was compared to something like the Bose, where the cups are deep. All right, let's start measuring cup depth. So the XM5 is about 2 centimeters at the deepest point. Let's look at the Bose. So here we have the Bose QC Ultra, and the interesting thing about the Bose is, while it is 2 centimeters or less at this point, the drivers are angled, which means if you turn it around, depth here is more like 2.8 centimeters, and that 0.8 centimeters doesn't feel like much, but trust me, it is quite a lot. Now let's take a look at the XM5 and how deep the cups are at different points. So here it's about 2.1 centimeters, here it's about 2 centimeters. Over here it's about 2 centimeters as well. And here at the deeper spot, I'm looking at less than 2 even. So this is the XM5 and this is the XM6. You can see that Sony hasn't done anything major in terms of cup design. So if you found the XM5 comfortable for the cup depth, you're going to find the XM6 comfortable as well. If you didn't, you won't, because there's another thing I've discovered, and this might not be a problem at all, but it's something I thought I should mention. The drivers on the XM6, there is definitely something jutting out right here in the middle. So hopefully you can see that when I press here. You see there is something sharp, and it's obviously the driver that's jutting out. It's not in the very middle, it's more towards this side. So hopefully this will be the part where your ear rests and it won't hit the side of your ear, but it could be a difficult situation if that hurts. Whereas on the XM5, there wasn't really any such thing. It was kind of a smooth, yes, there was a bit of a driver, but it wasn't protruding this far. So I'm very curious to see how this plays out over the long term, because this is not something Sony can fix with a software update. It's a very, very intentional design. I don't think the breathability has changed either. So if the XM5 was breathable for you, the XM6 is going to be breathable as well. So there's one thing that keeps this hardware from being like really the perfect hardware for me would be the cup depth and the angle design that people like Bose and Bowers and Wilkins employ. There is something of an angle here on the drivers, but it isn't really that deep. But we'll do a full comparison with the Bose Quiet Comfort Ultra. It's a very interesting comparison, so stay tuned for that.
Active noise cancelling. So it's clear that Sony is trying to market this new QN3 chip, saying that it's 7 times faster. But apart from that, there's also extra microphones on the outside of the ear cups. Now, that's supposed to help, pick up ambient noise, be able to cancel it out or process your voice, etc., all of that. So Rohan, would you use this?
Now, in terms of noise cancelling, let's start with the beginning, which is that the Sony WH-1000 XM5s are already in the top tier of noise cancelling, right? They're cutting out, probably bar Bose, the most amount of noise. XM6, I don't know. They do cut out marginally more noise, but not in a way that is significant enough to warrant buying this over that. But again, these are first impressions. We need to spend more time and test them. We're not even going to put them in tiers right now, but transparency is a completely different story. Wow. They have gone hard on transparency in addition to all those fancy modes. Just putting it in transparency is amazing for awareness. In terms of noise cancelling, we have the typical Sony ambient sound slider, but this time we have something new called auto ambient sound. What that does is it basically adjusts depending on how noisy it is outside. So you have a standard setting, a high sensitivity or a low sensitivity setting. There's also a voice pass-through feature here, and this of course filters in only the voices and not the low end sounds. Noise cancelling, you have no such slider. It's only when you switch to ambient sound. And over there, if you turn on auto ambient sound, that slider goes away. I'm just gonna keep it on full ambient sound. I like my ambient sound. Sony still has the speak to chat feature where if you start talking, it kicks into ambient sound.
So moving to sound, they're advertising a new driver, a 30mm driver here, and it's co-developed with Masters, a ton of mastering engineers. So there's also this noise shaper feature which will look ahead and anticipate sound and shape it. And they've also used the expensive Walkman tech in these headphones, and they're really marketing that as well. And there's also a 10-band EQ in the app. There was a big question here about whether this would come to the XM5 with a software update in the app as well. The answer is no. So this is exclusively for the XM6 only. So Rohan, what did you think of this?
All right, so we've got the app loaded and let's see what they have in terms of sound. In terms of sound, you start off with a listening mode. So essentially, this is a standard mode, is what we've always been using from Sony, but they have a background music mode, and that can be one of 3 different settings. You can have my room, so it feels like the background music is from your room, living room, which means I guess the spread of the sound changes a little bit, and cafe, which means it comes out from a bit farther out. Now, I've never been one for background music, but if you're somebody who listens to music while, I don't know, while studying or just, reading or something like that, then this is a good mode for you. But I'm going to turn this off and go back to my standard mode. But there's another mode called cinema mode, and this uses certain techniques, Sony told us, which kind of up mixes the audio. So kind of like DACE, but for cinema with that surround effect is something I would definitely use for movies and things like that. Now, one thing you will notice here is that the equalizer is disabled. And that is because I'm in one of these two modes, background or cinema. If you want to use EQ, you have to go to the standard mode. And the standard mode lets you access the EQ, but there's a couple of changes. One Kevin already spoke about, which is you're getting a 10-band EQ, which you do not get on the Sony WH-1000 XM5. But this 10-band EQ has different presets because it's obviously a different set of things you can change. So the heavy preset is more bass, clear is more treble, hard is more V-shaped, soft is the opposite of that. And they have this game EQ, and they said that this enhances footsteps and things like that. And of course, there's a manual mode. Now let's go into the first custom and see what the big difference is. Did you notice that? There is no slider here. In all the older Sony headphones, you had a clear bass slider. That is gone, people. All you have is this 10-band EQ, which you can manipulate. And we obviously have to test this a bit more, but I would prefer a 10-band EQ to this other slider thing anyway. Maybe some people prefer that. If you did, you're not going to get that. And Sony also told us that this is not coming to the WH-1000 XM5. Might change, but they told us at least right now it's not coming. You also have your Finder equalizer, which is kind of a blind test that helps you find the EQ that you like. I'm not going to do that now. You have spatial sound and head tracking. We've talked about that. And of course, good old Sony gives you LDAC. So you have an option for LDAC, and I've enabled that right now. Prioritize sound quality or stable connection. And stable connection, I think, would change the mode out of LDAC. There's a DACE Extreme, which is again Sony's flagship upscaling tech. So if you have lower quality music you're listening to, it will intelligently enhance that. And that's all the settings you have for sound. Okay, we're going to do some quick first impressions, just the bass and the volume and things like that. Nothing critical right now. I'm listening to a bass heavy track. So my first impression within 10 seconds is that it's a very Sony tuning. So if you're expecting a completely different tuning from the XM5, this isn't it, but it does sound a little bit more refined. A bit more on the bassy side if I am listening correctly. Nice, sounds good. Let's try the XM5. Man, I think that was placebo. At least on this track, they're sounding very, very similar. A little bit more sub bass on the XM6. Now let's try something with guitars. And then this is gonna be it, guys. I'm not gonna spend too much time. Okay. It sounds much narrower, the XM5. It sounds way wider, I would say. That's so the biggest difference I'm finding is a little bit more sub bass. It's a bit wider than the XM5, but still a very Sony tuning. Of course, this is like very short impressions. We will measure the frequency response as well of these. So check out a squig site down below, keep an eye on it. Other than that, for now, I think we have to move on.
Then phone calls. And like we've said before, the XM5 made leaps and bounds when it came to call performance with their XM5. So now with the XM6, they're saying it's AI powered and it has 6 microphones. But what's also interesting is that there's a new wind noise reduction mesh in the ear cups to block out that wind.
All right, so you're listening to this on the mics of the Sony WH-1000 XM6. Now the microphone and the headphones themselves are one thing, but how sound is perceived when you're in a windy situation is another. And what I thought was that in transparency, these do let a bit of wind in as expected. It wasn't to the level where it was really disturbing me, but you can definitely hear the wind when you're in transparency mode. Maybe the adaptive mode helps with that. But when you're in ANC mode, the wind is almost absent. So just like on the XM5, the wind noise when you're on a bike and listening to music isn't audible. Of course, it's important to stay safe in those surroundings. So if you're in a noisy place where it could be dangerous, do not put your noise canceling on. But if you're in a safe place and you're stationary, you won't be bothered by wind noise if you're using the XM6 to listen to music.
We'll obviously have to test it, which we will do, and we'll let you know what that's going to be like. But for now, it's good to know that there's also, and we're very happy to see this, is that you can mute the microphone.
Now Sony does have mute controls, but most normal companies would have just called them mute microphone, but no. Sony calls it enable the headphones microphone operation. So when I hit that cryptically named option, you see I have already enabled this toggle here, which is enable the headphones microphone operation. And it essentially means when I double tap the noise cancelling ambient button during a call, the mic goes on mute, and they have another nice option underneath that, which is a microphone off status notification, which means when you're in a call and you have gone to mute, you're going to hear a kind of a notification like a beep or a tone that helps you remember that you are muted. So if the other person can't hear you, you still know, oh yeah, I've muted because I can hear the tone. Now I did try this and it worked. It worked on a normal cellular call. It worked on a signal call, but in none of those calls, at least not on my Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, could the mute sync with the software. So on the software, it wasn't muted. It was muted via the hardware. We have heard that this works on Teams, so we will need to check that out and get back to you in the full review. But it works. So another step up from Sony on the XM6.
So a couple of extra features that they talked about. Sony is going to introduce their own voice control, which is basically their version of a voice assistant, but you can do a limited set of controls that are related to the headphones only.
And this is what the setting looks like. So by default, it's on this voice assist function on mobile device. So in my case, it would be Gemini. You could also switch it to Google Assistant, or you could switch it to operate headphones with voice commands. And these are the voice commands. You have to say, hey, headphones. It sounds a bit strange, but let's try that. I've enabled it. These are the commands you can do, by the way: play song, play music, pause song, replay song, volume, noise cancelling, check battery level. So let's see how well this works right now. I've enabled it. Oh no, wait. This is weird. Do you want to experience? Don't experience. I just want to do it. All right, let's try how this works, guys. Headphones, play music. Hey headphones, pause music. Oh wow, I can see myself using this all the time. Hey headphones, turn on noise cancelling. Hey headphones, noise cancelling on. Yeah, it took a while, but it got there. Hey headphones, noise cancelling off. Hey headphones, what's the battery level? Hey headphones, turn on ambient sound. So as you can see, it's a bit hit or miss, but I would certainly have this on, especially when it's cold and I have my gloves on and stuff like that. I think it's very, very useful feature to have. I just hope it works a bit better.
Apart from that, you can still connect to the onboard voice assistant if you like. And there's AuraCast support.
Software update stuff, and this is all the stuff that Sony probably has deals with, Amazon Music, Spotify, etc. If you use those services, might be useful, not something I ever needed. And of course, Sony has this kind of landing screen that you start with. It's going to help with simplifying this app, which I must say is, as usual, quite a lot.
And a few things on future-proofing and sustainability. The ear pads will still be user replaceable, so that's good. And the packaging will still be 100% plastic-free. And when the XM6 releases and is available to buy, the XM5 and the XM4 will still be sold. And the XM6 will come in at 450 euros or 400 British pounds. We don't have the USD price yet, but when we do, we'll put it up here or it'll appear in our next video. So guys, those were our initial impressions of the XM6. We just got our hands on them, and we're probably going to be comparing these to a ton of headphones, but leave it down in the comments below what you want to know about them and what you would like to see them compared to. As always, a big thanks to our patrons and YouTube members for supporting this channel financially, and a special thanks to these tested folks.
And how can we forget our Fuck Montier supporters, Jay, Rachel, Raj Panda, and Paula. You guys are amazing. If you're in the future, there'll be a video comparing these two. And we are also dropping a video with all the samples so you can judge for yourself how these sound, how the mic sound, how the ANC performs. Both those videos should be linked up here.
You've been waiting years for a new Sony flagship, and we've been DHRME. Dewey.